could it be? For me, your man, Louie T. Welcome to the command post. You know what it is. Post up, take command. I, of course, am your commander-in-chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me. So the final day of phase 3 of OTAs was essentially assistant coaches day. They were made available to the media. And as DQ stressed earlier in the offseason, this is the most important time for coaching. And he stressed the importance of his assistants and how good of a job they've done this offseason of preparing, especially the young players. I think, with veterans, we've seen a couple of guys not participate this offseason in the voluntary portion of the offseason program. And again, it's voluntary. You have to stress that. You don't have to be here. But for the rookies, for the second-year guys, the developmental guys, the guys that are trying to make their way onto an NFL roster, this is probably the most critical portion of the offseason before you get to training camp. So the coaches do a tremendous job of getting those guys ready to hit the ground running once training camp arrives. And this was their time to shine, talk about the offseason, things that they've seen from some of the players, especially the younger ones. Those are the ones we are the most intrigued by this time of the year. So the audio isn't the greatest. And again, that's out of my control. Some of these people didn't put the mic up high enough. And like one person in particular, Bobby Johnson, it sounded like he was whispering. So I didn't even add his audio into this conversation. But I wanted to grab snippets and pieces of some of the audio I heard from some of the coaches and what they had to say, some of the stuff that they said, very intriguing. So I wanted to make sure that you were in the loop because some of this stuff can get lost. Obviously, there's a lot going on. Everybody else has stuff that they're posting, individual pieces. You may get a whole interview on someone's YouTube channel, but it may be hard to find. So I pulled out a couple of pieces that were up on the team website, brought them here for you so you don't have to go looking for it. And we'll react to some of the things that are being said. So with that said, let's jump into the first person. And it's quarterbacks coach, Tavita Pritchard. Let's talk about what he had to say. Listen up. He's going to talk about the continuity in year 2 as well as his quarterback room. Take a listen.
One says, we start at ground zero. You don't pick up where we picked up last year. But to have that continuity this year, do you feel like you maybe have a little bit of a step up just based on that?
Yeah, I think if there is a place that we have where that continuity, I think there's a building element to it is like what we built in our relationships and our connections, so you can start from, maybe a different place from that standpoint. And when it comes to coaching and football, like there's so much trust involved. And I think when you can already have a base built, so like quarterback room, for instance, obviously Dayton there, and Marcus and Sam, David Blau, Brian Johnson and Cliff, like there's already so much that we've been through. So I think some of those conversations can now maybe start in a different place.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So I think that goes along.
And specifically with you and Cliff, I mean, you admitted last year when we spoke to you, guys had come from 2 different offensive backgrounds, 2 different philosophies.
2 different worlds.
But it's been the perfect marriage. How was it so effortless? Maybe it wasn't effortless to you, but on the field it certainly looked like that.
Well, I can't say enough about Cliff. And just like the football mind he is, but just the person he is. Like he is an incredibly conscientious leader. The way that he approaches not only our staff, but the players and our unit as an offense, I think it just goes a long way. Like he's collaborative. He's really interested in the ideas and the thoughts that we have when it comes to a play or a technique. And so I think in my working relationship with him, I think so much has been about, him giving me, showing me grace, but also just showing me trust, and be able to say, hey, I'm curious, what you think about this again, because we do come from some different worlds, but I think there's more similarities than I think either of us thought might be the case coming into this relationship.
Hey, that makes sense. And, switching gears a little bit, OTAs, we've seen a few sessions. What have you seen from this group of guys in that quarterback course?
Man, I've seen them compete. It's just been so much fun to watch them go out there every day. You guys have probably seen us throwing the ball into the net or into the garbage can. Like the group loves to compete. And we just know that so much of what we do, especially because there's one quarterback out on the field at a time. So the way that we compete is in the room, in the meeting room. Who can be the first to answer the question? Who can be the one to throw it to the net? Who can go fastest on this drill? So the way that they push each other has been fun to watch and see kind of take off again. And I think they're just being really intentional about how they're working to do that.
They all seem like best friends too. I mean, it just kind of looks like that on the field.
Yeah, I think like we take a lot of pride in what's being built. I think in the whole building, but also in our room. I think our guys trust each other a lot. And I think the way that they lift each other up, I think speaks volumes about who they are.
Yeah, and what does the year 2 Jaden Daniels look like? I mentioned to a few of these guys, no one's expecting him to look completely different in terms of taking a monumental step forward because he was so incredible last year. What does that year 2 look like?
I think the fun thing for us is like we get to not really worry about what the stats are or the process, but like we get to worry about right now. What does year 2 Jaden look like in the walk? What does year 2 Jaden look like in the meeting room? So I think what's most at the forefront for us as coaches is like, okay, how are we going to take that next step? What's the next thing that we're going to talk about in this progression? Of kind of taking his next step. So that's what's been fun for us to just kind of like focus in and hone in on those things.
So that was Tavita Pritchard talking about the quarterback room, the continuity from year 1 to year 2, how much more comfortable he and Cliff are together, how different their coaching philosophies were, and how they've done a great job of melding that together. Gave a lot of credit to Cliff for being very malleable. And I've talked about the fact that Cliff is very unique in the sense that he's one of these offensive coordinators who's always looking to grow and develop. He's not rigid and stuck in his ways and is unwilling to compromise the things that he wants to do. Rio talked about how Cliff was watching Oregon, trying to see innovative things, and that's how he stumbled upon Josh Connolly Jr. and became very smitten by his game and wanting to have him added to this roster. Cliff is always looking to adapt and adjust and be better. And he's always open to suggestions. We've heard players talk about in game. Jaden did it. Terry did it. Guys going up to him and suggesting, hey, I'm getting this look. Here's how we should counter this or that. And Tavita, coming from that Stanford program, run heavy, Cliff wants to spread you out, throw it every down. So he said 2 totally different worlds. And it's been a beautiful marriage there. And so that was Tavita Pritchard talking about the competition in that room and how they push each other, whether it's, throwing the ball into the net, answering questions in the meeting room, running through a drill, whatever the case may be. So always interesting to hear what Tavita has to say. I also want to add this. Just because Tavita is here, clearly he and Cliff are not one, right? They're not the same guy. So for those of you thinking, oh, well, if Cliff leaves, Tavita can just slide into the role and the offense will just keep rolling the way that it has. Tavita's not Cliff. Clearly they see the game differently. So just understand that. Enjoy Cliff while you got him. That's all I'm going to say. The next voice you're about to hear is that of linebackers coach Ken Norton Jr. I thought this was really intriguing audio here. He's talking specifically about a guy that I said is going to have to show and prove that he belongs in this league after making a positional switch. He got a redshirt season last year. I'm talking about Dominique Hampton. He was a safety last year. He's a linebacker now, made the transition all throughout the season last year, didn't play, didn't pout. But here's Ken Norton Jr. talking about the development of one Dominique Hampton and where he thinks Hampton is right now. Take a listen.
I want to talk to you about Dominique Hampton. So what have you seen out of him so far? He didn't really play that much last year in a linebacker role, played on special teams. But like over the summer, what have you seen from him so far?
Well, Dom has really worked hard this offseason. He's really changed his body. Okay. He's strong. He's fast. He's really upped his ability to communicate. Yeah. Playing a middle linebacker, he has to do a great job communicating. He's really upped his IQ about how to understanding the defenses, because being in the middle and making different checks and calls, you have to be right. Right. And now when he says something, he knows it's important because everybody's listening. Right. And when he doesn't say something, Yeah, it's important because he should be saying something. So I think this, he's young and developing, and this is a developmental program, and he's going to be, we're going to be really happy with the final product. He's going to be a really, really good player.
A lot of rookies, when they get out there, they want to play. A lot of times he was inactive for game days.
Yeah.
How did he approach that mentally? How did he approach not being able to suit up on Sunday?
Yeah, Dom he's mentally pretty tough. He understood the situation. He always stayed ready. He practiced every week like he was going to play. And so that's, I give him, that. And he continued to develop. And he still loves ball. I mean, it hasn't taken anything away from him. I think he used all the positives of being young, being a pro, learning the surroundings, understanding the position change he went through as far as safeties and linebacker. And to use all that and all that information to make him a better and more competitive this year. So I'm really excited about his mentality and how positive he's made this whole situation.
And also, the calls and making all that is a big learning curve for him.
Yeah.
But, what were some of the, other than that, what were some of the biggest learning curves that he had to experience going through his rookie year?
Well, I just think it's, when they come from college, they're playing all the time.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden you come here, you're not playing all the time. And then we're telling you you're going to develop.
Yeah.
And then I think there's a lot of situations in football. There's a lot of defenses. There's a lot of times where you have to really hone in on the details and things like that. And I think everybody has to learn how to be a really good pro. You just don't show up and be a good pro. It's a time of learning. And he's sent back and he's continued to grow and continue to learn and doing all the things that the good players do. And all the good players I've been able to coach, he's doing those things and he's going in the right direction.
So that was linebackers coach Ken Norton on Dominique Hampton. And I think that's pretty high praise from Ken Norton, right? This isn't a guy that just gives out praise like church ladies give out candy on Sundays, right? Like, this is a guy that watched a young man grow and develop. And one thing I can say about Ken Norton, it seems like too, he's a guy that builds up young players. I mean, there's a reason that our 6th round pick, wanted to be here, Kane Medrano, because of Ken Norton. And Ken Norton pours into these young men. And I think he did the same thing this past season for Dominique Hampton, knowing that Hampton wasn't really going to contribute to the team on the field, kept him mentally engaged and stimulated. And I think Norton's a huge part of his growth and development. It's a big part of the reason why Bobby Wagner wanted to be here. And those are pretty glowing statements about a guy that we think can have an impact on this team potentially this year in Dominique Hampton. I can't wait to see what his transformation looks like. You heard Norton say he's gotten bigger, he's gotten stronger, he's more mentally adapted to the position now and what it entails in year 2. He should be able to play faster. Can't wait to see what he looks like as we get to the preseason. Next coach that we're going to hear from, tight ends coach David Rye. And I talked about the depth on this football team. Tight end was one of the positions I mentioned depth at. Listen to David Rye talk about the depth at the position, but more importantly, what everyone's role inside that room is. And he said some pretty interesting things about Ben Sinnott, 2nd round pick from last year that some of you are a little down on. So take a listen to what tight ends coach David Rye had to say.
Knowing you were staying here, the whole staff sticking together was probably the top of your list. But when Zach Ertz resigned, where was that on the list?
Yeah, Zach and John. I mean, that was that's a huge part of our success, the continuity, the competition. And I'll also say they have a tremendous amount of respect for each other. And that's really the theme. I think now is connection, competition. It's a great.
I mean, clearly, I think it shows with Ertz and Bates kind of doing different things. How much more can all of them, and then add Ben in there, add Cole in there? I mean, there's that room is pretty deep,
very deep. And yeah, you got really when you break it down, we kind of have two positions in the tight end room, the inline blocking tight end who like you can run the football behind, and then the tight end that all of us know we're trying to throw the football. Sure. And so like Zach, John Bates, and the key is to grow them in those roles. Like Ben and Yank are receiving tight ends. Cole is in line, but kind of a hybrid. Bates is in line. Tyree Jackson and Lawrence Cager. Yes. I mean, so what's so awesome about what AP and DQ have done is they've like built the roster up so the competition with good people behind it is just kind of premium. So it makes it so fun to coach.
Do you think this could be a year where Ben kind of takes the next step as that pass catching tight end?
Definitely. He has tremendous ball skills.
Yeah.
And Ben has all the attributes that we saw throughout the draft process. What he has is it's a blessing in disguise. It's not easy as a young player to have like two premier vets in front of you, but that is a blessing. So it's like being a little brother, chomping at the bit to try to, get yourself in there or capitalize on the opportunity when it shows up. And if you look at last year, I mean, he had caught 100% of his passes, made some great blocks, and so we're hyper-focused on just continuing to grow as that time.
So that was David Rye, tight ends coach, talking about the depth of the room, the specific roles that guys play. Talked about Bates and Ertz being, more of the blocking variety with the ability to catch the football, but needing to improve in that department. Meanwhile, he singled out Colson Yankoff and Ben Sinnott as pass catching tight ends who need to get better as blockers, right? And so that was interesting to hear. He talked about the depth of the room and guys that we don't even think about anymore, right? Like Cole Turner. I've talked about and brought up the name Tyree Jackson a couple of times as a guy that maybe you should watch out for this summer. But it's a deep room. It's an interesting room. And he gave Adam Peters and company a lot of credit for giving that room diversity. I think it's one of those positions that should be watched closely this offseason and into training camp, because we know three tight ends are here: Sinnott, Ertz, and Bates. And he talked about the importance of bringing both Ertz and Bates back. And he talked about that sort of stunting the growth of Ben Sinnott, right? Like, it's unfortunate that he's behind those two veterans, but that's what it is. But he thinks that Sinnott's going to carve out a niche for himself this year. But that fourth tight end spot, if there's a fourth tight end spot, we're assuming that they're going to keep four like they did last year. There's no guarantee that that transpires. Will they continue to work with Colson Yankoff? They love him on special teams as well. That's a big thing. But there are other guys that are there that are continuing to get better. There's something to take into consideration. Interesting stuff from David Rye. Next voice you're going to hear is that of defensive pass game coordinator Jason Simmons. This is a guy that I think works as closely as anyone does with these defensive backs. He's almost a defensive backs whisperer at this point. A guy that I think defensive coordinator Joe Witt Jr. leans on very heavily. He talked about being in that second year, continuity being brought to the table, how that helps both players and coaches. Talked about Trey Amos, the second-round pick, a little bit, and his development and where he is. Take a listen to Jason Simmons.
Back. Pretty rare, I'd say, after like a 12-win season and a few championship games. How nice is that to have continuity there going into the offseason?
You said it. That's exactly what it is. It's giving that continuity. When you have that kind of continuity, with the coaches, it just feeds and leads into the players. When they see that we're on the same page, these guys easily get on the same page.
How is Amos, pretty high draft pick, how is he doing so far?
He's doing really good. The thing is about him that I'm most impressed with is his maturity, his ability to be able to grasp the playbook, his willingness to ask questions. A lot of times we have young guys and they're a little apprehensive about asking questions. I mean, he knows that he wants to be good. He knows what it takes to be good. He comes from a really good program, and we're excited to have him.
Going off the continuity, I know you've worked with Coach Witt even before you got here. His second go-around as D coordinator, how much has it helped already have that system in? Guys come in knowing what they're expecting, I guess.
Well, it's good for us and it's good for the players. anytime you hear something for the second year, guys are able to grasp it. Guys are now able to just not only know their assignment, but understand why behind it. So now that's why we're looking to take another step in the defense.
You have Marshawn. We haven't seen him here yet, but have you? So you've stayed in touch, or have you seen him at all athletically? How he looks, or is it just kind of wait till?
Well, definitely communicating. Yeah, I mean, of course, this is all volunteer. But excited to come to see him in the mandatory mini camp. Marshawn is a guy that is extremely talented. We all know that. Excited to see him come back and be healthy. He's going to come back, of course, with a chip on his shoulder because he's the ultimate competitor. Just can't wait to get it back in the room.
So that was Jason Simmons, defensive pass game coordinator, talked about a number of different things. He's always intriguing to listen to. Another one of those straightforward guys. I could listen to him talk a lot more. Really love what he has brought to this staff. And I think that back end is going to be a lot better this year because of the coaching of Simmons. And as he said, being in year 2 is going to help these guys play faster. And the addition of Trey Amos as well. Mentioned Marshawn Lattimore and can't wait to see him get into the building for the mandatory minis. I think that was the most important thing that he said, which we all assumed, but it's good to hear a coach say it. They expect Marshawn Lattimore to be there, as do we. Same with Laramie Tunzel. And so that was Jason Simmons. Now let's hear from wide receivers coach Bobby Ingram. Obviously, he talked about the rookie 4th-round pick, Jalen Lane, and what he can bring to the table, but also talked about the group and talked about, Luke McCaffrey going into year 2 and what Luke can do to continue to improve. He said some interesting things. Take a listen to Bobby Ingram, wide receivers coach.
Jalen Lane draft pick. What are you most excited about working with him on?
Every aspect of being a better receiver, honestly. Jalen's a super smart guy. He's a coach's son, so he gets to exercise on a different level. Love his work ethic, but my job is to help him prepare and just to kind of tap into every ounce of potential that he has, and he's willing to work and do that. So I'm excited about that.
When you look around the room, you have a bunch of receivers that do a lot of different things well. Jalen has the speed. Debo, obviously, with physicality. Harry is, who he is. Does that excite you as a coach when you get a chance to work with a bunch of guys who do a lot of different things well, because you can kind of work all different aspects of their games?
Absolutely. I think when you have a group that's well-rounded and versatile, it makes you extremely difficult to cover. And we'll just continue to have the competition. Everybody's competing at a high level. Just continue to figure out what guys do really well, and Cliff will put them in positions to go out and do what they do well to help us win.
What do you want to see out about Luke McCaffrey in year 2? Kind of take that big step from rookie to sophomore year.
Yeah, just continue growth as a receiver, route running, run after catch, contested catches, really everything. But I thought Luke did a great job of just staying the course last year. Got up to a bit of a hot start, and then things kind of cooled off a little bit. But he never wavered in his approach and his work ethic. So I think naturally the biggest jump will be between year 1 and year 2. And I really like the speed and the way he's attacking football out there. He's made some really tough catches.
With Noah Brown coming back again, I don't want to say surprised because obviously NFL receivers are all good, but were you surprised by how much he was able to get downfield and how his physicality played out on some of those deep balls last year, and how can you kind of build on that as we go into year 2?
I was not surprised just because Noah works extremely hard. He pays great attention to detail. He plays super fast. He's a highly competitive guy, but what I'm looking to build on is just what the foundation that he laid. He came in here and he earned the trust of Jaden and the coaching staff right away. So I'm just looking to help grow different aspects of this game, down the field, like finishing some of the deep balls, some of that catch. But really, man, just continue to improve his overall game, and I really love his approach. He's a very quiet guy, but he's a very strong leader in the sense of aspect.
Thank you.
So that was Bobby Ingram, wide receivers coach, talking about a number of different topics. Jalen Lane, Luke McCaffrey, the outlook of this position this year, Noah Brown, the importance of having him back. You forget sometimes that Luke McCaffrey had a really fast start to the season because it gets lost in the shuffle of the disappointment of him just really not being a factor last year as the season progressed. But remember, he started against Tampa Bay in week 1. That might have been one of his biggest games receiving yards wise, that and the week 3 contest against Cincinnati because he had his biggest catch of the season of 30 yards in that Cincinnati game. He actually started fast in the season, and then as the year wore on, he became less and less of a factor. Obviously, Noah Brown's emergence after week 1 didn't help his case, and as the season progressed, other guys started to get more integrated into the offense, whether it was Olamide Zaccheaus or even a Jamison Crowder to a lesser extent. But other guys stepped up. He kind of fell back a bit. But again, I've talked about the depth of this team. Receivers, another deep position. And I think Luke McCaffrey is a guy that's going to shine a bit brighter this season. So next, we're going to hear from defensive line coach Daryl Tapp. He talked about the depth of his room, and I've been talking about depth on the last video that I put out. I talked about the 3 biggest takeaways from the OTA phase of the offseason, and number 2 on that list was that we're deep. We're a deeper team this year. The depth on this roster makes me feel really good about what we can put on the field in spite of injuries, because those are going to happen. I feel good about the guys that are also ready and waiting in the wings. And defensive line is one of those positions that got better this offseason, got deeper this offseason. Daryl Tapp talks about that. Listen to defensive line coach Daryl Tapp.
I'm really tired of the offseason speculation and all that goes with it.
Yeah, I'm used to it as a player, then now as a coach. Like, it comes with the territory, but we know we have the opportunity to be a good team. So I think everybody's just excited to see what we can do going forward. The guys are rejuvenated, they're healthy, they're excited about a brand new year. And they all believe in AP and believe in EQ and they believe in Coach Witt and myself and Kerrigan and Floyd. Like, we have a good situation here, and guys understand that being an NFL player is a small window in their lives. So we want to make sure we maximize every time. So that's where the excitement comes from.
So you've added a few guys up front.
Yes, sir.
Some big fellas too.
Yeah.
How does it change? Like, how does this group change maybe what you can do or what the strength is of the group? What do you think this group adds, the new guys?
We have a lot of veteran leadership. Javon Kinlaw, my guy from San Fran, to see him grow from a puppy in this league to now a year 5-6 player, is doing a lot of big things and really coming to his own. As far as his play style and winning up to the conference, Dietrich Wise, the guy's been around the block a couple of times in New England and plays really good ball, really sound ball. So we brought in Eddie Goldman, we brought Carl Davis back, we brought Sheldon Day back, to add to Devon Payne and Javonte DeBaptiste and turns on. Like, it's a really good mesh of veteran guys that are playing some good balls and guys that have been here, young guys. We're just trying to put it into this pot and be the best product out.
So that was defensive line coach Daryl Tapp talking about the expectations for this season, talking about the depth of that defensive line and how good he feels about getting to coach Javon Kinlaw again and seeing his growth now that he's going into, I want to say 5th or 6th year of his career. So that D-line is going to be, a force in terms of stopping the run. The question is, can they match that energy, getting to the quarterback? And I think they can, but it's going to have to be a collective effort. You heard Tapp talk about guys like Javonte John Baptiste. I may be underselling him a bit. Maybe he's a guy that is more squarely in their plans than I'm giving him credit for. So he's more in their plans than a guy like Cleveland Farrell. I definitely believe that. But he even mentioned, so you got to take it with a grain of salt. He mentioned Carl Davis, right? Like, and that got under my skin just a little bit. Like, don't bring him up, Anyway, I digress. And then lastly, we're going to hear from one of my favorite assistant coaches on this staff, running backs coach Anthony Lynn. He, much like the rest of us, excited, intrigued by Bill. He talked about that, talked about the running back group as a whole, and what he's working on with these players this time of the year. Take a listen to running backs coach Anthony Lynn.
So, Coach, a lot of people are intrigued about Corey Krosky-Merritt. Just
me too.
Kind of your thoughts draft weekend with him coming in, and then what have you seen from him since he's arrived?
He's working, man. I love the kid. He's already a young professional. He gets this business. And, he worked his way up from Alabama State to get to this level, and that says a lot about his work ethic right there. But he's looking good. Usually by that third week of training camp, we'll know exactly what we have in him. But he's learning right now. He's growing up like a weed every day. So I'm pleased with where he's at.
For those of us out here, the fact that he showed up to the Shrine Bowl, ready to dominate, compete, and won that award there, spoke a lot to his maturity. Does that do the same on the inside as well?
I think when you've been through what he's gone through, that would help you grow up a little quicker. And I definitely can see that. He's hungry. He missed all last season. But, when he went to that Shrine Bowl, if you watched every practice, he got better every rep. And that was one of the things that really impressed me.
And how do you go about, what's your strategy for teaching a young running back, whether it's a rookie or even a second-year guy, just kind of how to see everything that's happening in front of them, how to sort through the traffic and the noise to find the right spot to go?
Well, I teach them all the same every single year. I teach them to get what's blocked, and then we went on one-on-ones with certain fundamentals. So it's the protections, it's the route running, it's the small details. And right now, he's got to be really good at it. So that when we get to training camp, he's not thinking so much.
And Coach Quinn talked about this kind of being the time where the coaching staff really gets to shine. You guys get to teach the most of the entire year. This time of year for you, are you more focused on kind of the educational part of it? Like, here's your assignment, here's your landmark, here's where you need to get, or are you working more on the physicals of it, trying to be a better blocker, and so on and so forth?
Because you don't have the pads on, you really can focus more on the mental. And this time of year is when I teach whole. When the season starts, it's part. Because every week is a different opponent. But right now, you have a chance to teach concepts, and we take the time to do that.
So, of the video that I did yesterday, I talked about the depth of this roster, and I singled out a few positions, running back being one of the most notable. I want you to listen to this clip from running backs coach Anthony Lynn as he talks about the depth of that running back room. And he mentioned some names that I talked about a few of these names, but one of these names, I was extremely high on him last year. Listen to what Anthony Lynn had to say about one player in particular.
So I'm looking forward to see what these new guys are going to bring to the table. To be honest, we brought in Demetric Felton, we brought in Bill, and then we have Cass, who came over from slot receiver. He's starting to look like a running back. And then we have Mike Wiley, who's probably had the best offseason out of all of them.
Ring the alarm. If you were asleep, wake up. Michael Wiley is still around, and he's still alive and kicking. Anthony Lynn just said that he's having the strongest offseason of any of the running backs, especially the younger ones. So, and it makes sense. He's in year 2, right? He's had a full season now. He understands the system and what they're looking for. I've said this all along. He feels like an Austin Eckler replacement. And so the longer he stays around, this running back group can look totally different next year. No Brian Robinson, in comes Ja'Cory Crosky-Merritt. No more Austin Eckler, in comes Michael Wiley. And all of a sudden, you've got a totally different running back room that's more dynamic, more shifty, a much younger group, obviously. And I wouldn't be shocked if that's what the room looks like next year. But to hear him talk about a guy that I was extremely high on last year, that I kind of just, again, new shiny toy, kind of kicked him to the side, but he's talented. I thought he was talented last year, and that hasn't changed, and I think he's still a talented guy. Want to see what his development looks like in the preseason as well. But to hear running backs coach Anthony Lynn talk about Michael Wiley, and I talked to you guys about the Kaz Allen experiment, right? He's now a running back, and he looks like a real running back now. And you hear Anthony Lynn talk about his development. This is a deep group, and they're an interesting one to watch as we head to training camp. But let me know what you think. You've heard from a number of different assistant coaches. You may have heard some other clips elsewhere. Tell me what you think. Maybe I didn't hear something. Maybe you did. Or maybe there was something that was said or something that was said that jogged your memory and makes you feel a certain way about something, whatever the case may be, leave it down in the comment section. Can't wait to read your responses. But that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T, here on this installment of the Command Post. You know what it is. Post up, take command. Until next time, you guys have a good one. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. Enjoy the NBA Finals. Game 1 was exhilarating. Let's see what Game 2 has in store. But for the rest of you, enjoy the weekend. I'll see you on the other side. Take care.